Well, thank you, Anders. I don't know how I can ever live up to that introduction. Madam Speaker, dear award recipients, Your Excellencies, Members of Parliament, dear friends. Earlier this week, Africa lost one of its most prominent educators and historians. The Right Livelihood Award family has lost one of its foremost elders. Professor Joseph Kisarbo was a cultural pioneer rooted in African wisdom who worked hard to promote education as the driving force for African development and emancipation. Please join me in a minute of silence in gratitude for the life and work of Joseph Kisarbo. Thank you. Over the last year, we have entered what Winston Churchill once called an era of consequences, from which we can no longer hide. The fundamental madness of the current global order has been exposed. We need economic growth, its propagandists tell us, to help the poor. But as the New Economics Foundation in London has calculated, this system needs $166 of global growth in order to provide $1 more for those living on less than $1 a day. In Kerala, in southern India, I saw one of the consequences of this economic order a few weeks ago. Communities of fishermen who have gone out fishing every day for thousands of years no longer did so this year because there are so few fish left. Unable to stop the large foreign trawlers, the local communities are turning against each other in a desperate attempt to protect their livelihoods. Global fish stocks, we are now told, will run out entirely within 50 years if we do not change course quickly. But the ruling economic extremism and monetary system block long-term thinking and are blind and deaf to such consequences. A healthy natural environment, irrespective of its current economic value, is the foundation of our existence. A foundation's importance does not diminish with the growth of the structure it supports. On the contrary, low natural resource prices are not evidence of their plentifulness or unimportance, but of their rapid exploitation. We now face a great historical turning point. Previous such turnings have been gradual, largely unconscious, and confined to specific areas. This one, which we now face, will be sudden, global, and conscious. The challenges facing us are both spiritual, reconnecting with our earth and our responsibilities, and practical. Visions need timetables. We need to change our global and national rules. We cannot leave it to the market. As Karl Polanyi said already many years ago, free markets demand enormous increases in continuous, centrally organized and controlled interventionism. The real questions are about the nature, purpose, and consequences of such interventions. Clearly, we can no longer afford to be ruled by decision makers who tell us that we are in a struggle to save civilization, but are too timid to raise petrol taxes. Most of the recipients of this award work for environmental protection and restoration. Without a healthy environment, there is little chance of solving other crises. You cannot build a just and peaceful society or protect human rights in a ruined natural environment. You can renegotiate financial agreements. You can reschedule debts. You can try to reach agreement with your enemies. But you cannot negotiate with melting glaciers. Nature does not reschedule ecological debts. Our economies are fully owned subsidiaries of our natural environment. There is therefore no alternative to ensuring that all our indicators and our prices speak the ecological truth. We must link our politics, economics, security and development to how we live and consume. Technological progress alone cannot save us. Virtual reality also needs energy. Computer waste needs recycling. Virtual water cannot quench our thirst. Earlier this year, the Financial Times published an article calling for well-being and happiness to replace economic growth as our main indicator of progress. Recently, the Deutsche Bank research followed. listing the resulting policy implications, including limits on what they call materialistic advertising, as, quote, people who watch a lot of TV feel poorer. Today, the key question is not left or right, markets or governments. It is how best to protect our living earth against the attack on our cultures, values and commons by the ideology of global greed. A few weeks ago, I had the unusual experience of being the recipient of an award. Among the proposals made by other recipients of the Liechtenstein-based Binding Award for Nature Protection is the call for limited liability corporations to be replaced by foundations dedicated to the common good in all areas vital to our future. The future of our children and planet now depends on our limiting the extent of our limited liability. As the economist Kenneth Boulding has said, he who believes that exponential growth can go on forever in a finite world is either a madman or an economist. Recently, many recipients of this award, as well as several jury and advisory council members, have joined with others to build the World Future Council, which Anders spoke about, as part of the global answer to such madness. The World Future Council will speak up for the neglected interests of our children and future generations. It will be an ongoing forum, developing policy responses to the key challenges facing us. It will aim to provide the moral leadership needed to overcome the growing policy implementation gaps which increasingly threaten the legitimacy of and trust in our democratic decision-making institutions. As Hannah Arendt once said, the spirit of renewal needs its own institutions. This spirit also needs a new shared human story based on expanded empathy and sharing. The peace of security we are now offered is a peace of fear, suspicion, silence, and regimentation. We need to work for a security of peace based on justice, reconciliation, and reverence for life. The World Future Council will be officially launched next May in Hamburg, which has provided the core funding for the start-up phase. And I'm very glad that Anders Wijkman has accepted to be one of the founding councillors of this body. The World Future Council is already at work, researching best policies worldwide in order to help develop the framework for a fair and sustainable global order. The issue is not whether this is realistic today, for it is clearly necessary tomorrow, if we do not want to go down in history as criminal madmen. As the economist E.F. Schumacher reminded us, the essence of civilization is not in the multiplication of wants, but in the purification of the human character. Or as the Earth Charter reminds us, when basic needs have been met, human development is primarily about being more, not having more. We can and must mobilize the moral energy and will to reset our compass for the future before the ice caps melt, the trees die, and our children inherit a fantasy stock market presiding over an impoverished world. As Anders quoted from the Stern report, climate chaos is indeed the most disastrous market failure ever, but I might add it is also the most disastrous political failure. For which one of us, after informed debate, have actually voted for climate chaos? It has been calculated that a few US foundations and wealthy individuals have spent $1 billion over the past decades to promote the current world order via think tanks, the media, and the political system. This world order denies natural limits, thus reversing the US environmental leadership role of the 1970s, and subordinates democracy to the rule of money, replacing one person, one vote with $1, one vote, especially on the global level. Our globalized world at the moment is no Earth community, but a fragmented non-community of globalized individuals. The result is alienation, violence, and terrorism against people and planet. For as the murdered Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik Hariri used to say, desperate people do desperate things. In a recent publication by the Dag Hammarskjöld Foundation, Swedish futurists Göran Bäckstrand and Lars Engelstam note that, quote, if private morals and citizens' sense of decency and convictions about what ought to be done do not relate in some reasonable way to political decisions and the macro development of society, those two worlds will slide apart.